Hi, I'm Jean.
And I'm Cherie.
And we're the Tiger Sisters.
Hey guys, welcome back. This is part 2 of our video where we talk about the first gen experience. In our previous episode, Jean and I really dove into our background, kind of how we grew up and how that's impacted how we see the world. And if you're a first generation American or if you're the child of immigrants, hopefully you'll be able to resonate with this episode.
With our childhood traumas, you mean?
Yes, definitely. And some of the things that we talk about. And even if you're not, I think this will give you a glimpse or like a lens into some of the, intersectional or, bi-cultural straddling, which we talked about last episode, that some of us first gen experiences.
Yeah, you probably know a lot of first gen people.
Cool. Let's dive in. Before we get started, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this episode, we would so appreciate it if you could share it with a friend.
So we're going to start with bringing back a segment that a lot of people loved. It's Book Club.
Book Club.
Book Club. Okay, we have 2 new books to talk about and to recommend. So Cherie, why don't you kick us off on what is a book that you've been reading and loving?
Yes. So technically, I haven't been reading this book. I've been listening to it on audiobook on Spotify. I love doing it whenever I'm in the car. I can turn it on. I can drive somewhere and make progress on this book.
Minus points.
No, plus aura points because we're reading technically and we're multitasking. So the book
So when you listen to this podcast, you're reading.
Yeah. So the book that I'm reading right now is Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, the late Anthony Bourdain. It's an iconic book. It's been out for, I think, almost 20 years now, but really it feels like you're in the moment with him. So for those of you who don't know, Anthony Bourdain is a world-renowned chef. He passed away in 2016, I believe, but he talks about his life and his career, especially as he started up as like a chef in New York City and honestly all around the United States. And it just follows his adventure in the 90s and basically what is it like to be a chef in the 90s? What does it mean? And he warning, this book has a lot of cursing. It's quite vulgar and exciting in that way. What did you say?
I said, oh.
And it's quite vulgar and definitely very colorful. So there's your warning there. But I think it's also just like a really beautiful piece that talks about food, the culinary world, and also like how food can bring people together and really shape things outside of the industry as well.
Yeah, can I chime in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I have also been like reading parts of this book because Cherie was playing it
in the car
while we were doing like a road trip. And I almost think this is like one of those books that is better listened to.
Oh yeah, because he reads it.
Yes, he reads it. He has such a beautiful, distinctive voice. I love his voice. And the way that he reads it is at an incredible pace. Mm-hmm. Like you feel like when you're listening to it, you feel like you're jogging. Like you feel your body feels like you're like rushing along with him. You feel the adrenaline. Like you feel,
because the book is very fast paced in and of itself.
Yes.
And then he's reading it the way that he was writing it, or it was intended to be like listened to.
It's almost like stream of consciousness. I feel like the way that he writes.
It is very beautiful writing, and it's a memoir. And I love biographies. I love memoirs, and you just hear about his life and the trials and tribulations and what happens in kitchens.
Yeah.
And if you're even like a little bit of a foodie, I think you will love this book.
Yeah, and also just like his voice is so strong. I don't mean his like listened voice. I mean his writing voice is so distinctive. And also he's an excellent writer. Like I don't know if he's like classically excellent, but like the way that he writes and the way that you experience the book is so visceral. Like you like feel like you're in the kitchen. Like you feel like the steam is like rising up and like hitting you in the face, and like you feel like you smell the like it's good actually.
Well, also the book is like super descriptive too. Mm-hmm. So like it feels like you're in the kitchen with him.
Okay, and also he has an incredible vocabulary.
Yeah.
Like I feel like this book somehow has like 4x the like vocabulary of like a typical book like we would read from day to day.
Yeah. It's artfully, it's masterfully done.
Yeah, great recommendation.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me chime in.
Totally. Because you read the book as well. And it's also funny because Jean would be like in my car and she would come in at like different points in the book, I think, like come in and out. And like it's almost as if like you didn't really miss a beat or you didn't mind that like you kind of jumped in and out of this book.
Yes.
Because like you don't really need to know or hear about it like sequentially in that way.
You don't, because it's just like he just keeps like telling his life story. It just like keeps going. Stories. It's just like going and going.
Yeah. So Kitchen Confidential, would recommend. All right, Jean, what is your book recommendation for book club?
Okay, my book recommendation is Big Fan by Alexandra Romanoff. It's so good. Okay, so this is actually a book. It's the inaugural publication of this company called 831 Stories. So I don't know, some of you might know that I am a investor and I'm also an advisor to startups. So 831 Stories is a modern romantic fiction startup started by these two women who are, they're brilliant. They have their own podcast too. They've had a very long running podcast. They're brilliant. They're so smart. And it is really reflected in this book. So it's a romance novel. It's pretty smutty.
Is it?
But I'll just read the tagline. It goes, a political strategist, her former boy band crush, and what happens when teenage yearnings take a very adult and very sexy turn.
Ooh.
It's just like it's like a fun book to read. It has a great backstory because it's about this political strategist. So you have a lot of that like DC, Washington, like intrigue that it's always fun to like learn about.
Like Scandal?
Sort of. Exactly. It's like Scandal. So it's like fun to like learn about a world you're not in. And I feel like it's actually very well researched, very accurate. And it's also, it's a little bit of like kind of like, you know, fantasy. Like it takes you outside of your own world, but it's not so far-fetched. And also the main character is a little bit older. So she's like in her like late 30s, I think. So for me, I was like, oh, like this could happen to me if I were a political strategist. But then also it's really smart the way it's written. Like
a smart, smutty book.
Yes. There you go. Yeah. Smart, smutty book.
I've actually never read smut before.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Well, outside of Gossip Girl in like middle school.
Yeah. Well, it's like totally having a renaissance.
It really is.
Like romantasy and do you know what that is?
Romance fantasy.
Yes, exactly.
Actually, my friend Nicole was telling me about this book that a lot of girls girls and guys are reading. It's about like fairies.
Yes.
Fairy smut.
That was like my book club like ripped through all those books.
Really?
That was like the book that my book club was like the series that my book club was most excited to talk about.
Really?
Everyone showed up.
Well,
it was like people were like getting riled up.
Okay, well, I need to read it. I feel like to be part of the zeitgeist.
Yes,
because I've never read one of those books. I think it'd be fun to do it in like also, you know, a setting where people want to talk about it too.
Yeah, and so I would really recommend this book. It's just like fun. It's short. It's like sexy and smart.
I kind of like sexy and smart. That's like a really good tagline.
Yeah, and it's like the way that she like speaks and the way that the character is written, you're like, oh, I see, like that could be me, like, or she could be one of my friends.
Right. Cool. I'm gonna borrow that after you're done.
I'm done.
Okay, I will borrow it now. Hey guys, quick break to let you know that we now have merch on sistersmatcha.com. We have sweatshirts and t-shirts that we designed ourselves. Go check it out. And please rate us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. These ratings are so important for the distribution and survival of Tiger Sisters podcast. Thank you for your support.
All right, hope you guys like this edition of Book Club. Now, moving on to the main topic, which is the first gen experience, part 2.
The first gen experience, it's a pretty heavy topic. We really got into it last time, and there is like so much more to say here. And so we want to dedicate a whole nother episode of the Tiger Sisters to really dig in here. And specifically, we're going to start off talking about, are you friends with your parents? Should you be friends with your parents? And like, where does that line cross? Does it ever cross? And, you know, as a first gen like child of immigrants, like, what is the mindset on this? So Jean, I know you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah. I would say until I like started going to my friends' houses in like elementary, like middle school, I didn't know you could be friends with your parents.
Yeah.
And like it's actually, oh my God, there's so much. I have like 50 million thoughts about it. Like, you know how there's this credence of like the most important thing for a child growing up is not their immediate family necessarily, but the neighborhood that they live in, and then all the other families that they're exposed to through their friends.
Yeah.
That's like actually a really good example of it.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that I learned from my friend group, my girlfriends in my friend group, and like observing them and their families.
Yeah.
That I was like, oh wow, like you're like, there is a different way to live.
Especially if it's culturally different from your family at home.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And like there's a different way to like interact with your friends. I mean, there's a different way to interact with your parents.
How the other half lives.
Kind of. And I like saw them like making jokes with their parents and like making fun of their parents and
calling their parents by their first name, perhaps.
Yeah, or just being like literally even saying like shut up mom or something like that. Like we would no,
you can't say that.
You can't say that. That's I mean, that's definitely cultural.
I think there's like a very clear difference of being like a child from the ages of like, I don't know, born until like 18 and having a relationship with your parent, and then when you're an adult and you actually leave the house, how does your relationship evolve then, if it does? Because like in, I think, many parents' eyes, I'm not a parent and you're not a parent yet, but like we hear that like you'll always be their like kid and like seem like a kid to them. But I think it's really interesting when like 18 plus, you move out of the house and you start to gain knowledge and experiences that your parents, especially immigrant parents, haven't had, haven't had exposure to even. And then you become like the knowledge bearer in so many ways of like knowing things that they don't know in like professional, personal life, romance, like all those things they haven't experienced. And that becomes a very weird like turning point as well, when you're like, you see your parent in a different way.
I would say for a lot of immigrant children or children of immigrants, that happens way earlier than 18.
Oh,
way
you think so?
Oh, I mean, for me, that's my experience. Way earlier than before I moved out, because like for us, our parents are moving to the country for the first time. They're having a whole new experience. They have to relearn an entirely new way of life, versus for the child, it's like you get to have many more years of like backstory of experiencing it and having the new culture be the new culture, but the American culture be second nature to you. It's your first culture. Right. So like there's just so many like norms and like there's just so many cultural norms that as the first gen child you're used to.
There's this really funny TikTok that I saw a while ago, but it's like it just came into my head. It's like when you're a child and like you're literally like I don't know, like 15, trying to fill out the FAFSA, like the financial aid form for college. And, you know, you're I don't know, it was like you're 15 to like, I don't know, 17 years old, like trying to fill it out or something. When the parent is like supposed to fill out all that information, but like when you have more context and like you understand more stuff, like it forces you, I think, in a lot of ways to grow up faster, to have more of that responsibility. But like, it was a context, like not even in an Asian context, it was like a different like culture completely. But I think a lot of people can like relate to that.
I think another like really small way that people across all different cultures who are children of immigrants have experienced this is that like many times your parents have an accent. And so like when you're talking on the phone, the way that they're perceived or the level of customer service that they receive is markedly lower than someone who doesn't have an accent.
It's horrible.
So, like I know like you and I grew up a lot, like we oftentimes were the ones that had to like call in to do like customer service things,
or like call AT&T because like we don't have we have a very American accent, and so like completely wrong, but like we are taken more seriously in our opinion.
I could have a British accent. That's when it's really important.
Really important.
If there's something that's really important.
This is urgent.
It's critical.
Urgent. It's critical.
It's mission critical.
I mean, but also tying it back, like, can you be friends with your parent? And would you want to be friends with your kid? Because I recently interviewed a CEO of like a multi-billion-dollar company, and I was kind of surprised to also just like, we talked about like family, life, career, children, and he was also pretty adamant that like parent and child is a special relationship, but like they're not friends. And I was kind of surprised to hear that. I feel like people who are like younger than our parents would have a different view, but I do think it might be kind of cultural. I don't know.
I think it depends on the child, honestly. It's going to depend on the personality of the child.
You think so? Not
totally.
Not the personality of the parent?
No. I think the parent will need to adjust their approach depending on the child. Because, like, even for, like, obviously I'm not a parent, but I feel like I have been a parental figure for you at many points in our life. And, like, you have always been, like, extremely receptive to my feedback and to my direction and my guidance. Even when, like, it's something that you didn't want to do. Like, for example...
I swear to God, if you say study computer science as the example...
that's an example. But I mean, like, if you were not generally receptive to my feedbacks, then, like, I don't know, I would have to, like, tailor my approach. Like, then we would have had a different sort of relationship.
Yeah.
I will say I do think there are some downsides to being friends with your parents, because I think that in some ways there is less of that parent-child relationship that you talked about. And so a lot of times as the child, like, you don't feel like you have to take into account what your parent says. Like, you have a lot more autonomy, which can be good, but then also can be bad depending on your age. And then I think also depending on the level of judgment of the child, right? So I do think that, like, there are people I know who were much friendlier with their parents, and then they ended up making, I think, I don't know, were like suboptimal choices for themselves, because they were allowed to just do whatever they wanted to do, and they were children, you know?
Well, I do think there's a way, like, I think that's, like, very, like, we're talking about the extremes, you know, in, like, both examples. Like, I wonder what, like, a more moderate relationship might look like, where, like, you straddle, like, you are the parent in the times that it really matters, and you are the friend also in times that it really matters, because I do think there is a time and place for both. Like, when you're the parent and you're like, yeah, I think I do know better because I've lived on this earth for, like, 20, 30 more years than you, and so I can kind of see things clearly. But then as a friend, like, sometimes you need a friend and not a parent, and sometimes you need a parent and not a friend.
Yeah.
So I don't, since I am not a parent yet, I don't know quite where that is, but I think as a child, I would appreciate both. But I think it's hard to do both.
Well, it's like having that level of, like, you can have some dialogue about it, and not being afraid as a child to, like, still voice your opinion, ask questions, like, have a conversation about it, as opposed to feeling like everything your parent says is, like, an edict.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally. Or, like, I think, I mean, honestly, you kind of straddle both for me in a lot of ways. Like, you are parent-like, less parent-like, but you do kind of, like, go on that border. But I'm, like, I can tell you anything and everything, and I feel so comfortable doing so. And, like, that's the friend. But I also know that you come in with the parent lens because, like, you want the best for me. Not that a friend wouldn't, but, like, you also come in with that, like, very strong judgment as well. In a good way. You know what I mean?
I am very judgmental. No, I'm kidding.
That's not what I meant.
Yeah, you mean I have, like, good judgment because I have a little more life experience than you.
Yeah. But I also know what you're saying isn't an edict. Yeah, even if it is a really strong opinion, like, I do feel autonomy in my life to, like, make my own decisions. But also that's all, we're adults. Like, if it were 10 years ago, it might not feel that way. But now, like, we're adults.
Yeah, make me a sandwich. Bitch, make me a sandwich.
Yeah, I think, like, in conclusion...
You still don't always get me water when I ask for it.
Yeah, I do 98% of the time.
I'm just kidding. That's my love language.
Yeah.
You get me a water if I ask for it.
It started out when we were kids, and she's like, get me a glass of orange juice.
Really?
Literally, you're obsessed with orange juice.
What?
Yeah, that was your drink of choice.
What? We don't even have orange juice. We never drink orange juice anymore. Now I'm craving orange juice.
Well, we don't anymore, but we were a Tropicana family growing up because we never had any soda in our house.
That's true.
Or sugary drinks except for orange juice. Like, we never had, like, juice, like, any other, like, fruit punch or, like, apple juice or anything. It was just orange juice.
I guess I do freaking love orange juice. I love fresh squeezed orange juice.
You love orange juice with the pulp.
Oh my God, I love it.
I would always request no pulp, but then our family would get pulp. Not even some pulp, but it would be like
heavy pulp. Most pulp.
Yeah, from Tropicana. That was
if you know it's good for you. If you know it's good for you, drink the pulp. Fiber.
Insane. Just to close out this section, I would like to be friends with my kid in the future. Obviously, trying to straddle the parent thing as well, but we'll see how that goes.
Hey everyone, quick break to share something special. Sisters Matcha. We've launched limited batches of ceremonial grade, single estate, single cultivar matcha, straight from the family farm Cherie worked on in Japan. It's pure, authentic, and crafted with intention. Head to sistersmatcha.com to grab yours before it sells out. Make matcha your daily ritual for lasting energy and focus.
Okay, the next topic that we're going to talk about is Eldest Daughter Syndrome. So I will kick it off with a viral tweet on X that says, "Are you happy, or are you the oldest sibling and also a girl?"
Mic drop.
Yikes. That hits for me.
You good, bro?
Barely, just barely.
Just barely holding on.
Barely holding on after that tweet. But you guys, you might have seen, I don't know if you're on this side of TikTok, but this year there was a TikTok that popped off that was all about this, I think she's a therapist or like a mental health advocate who made a TikTok about eldest daughter syndrome, which is not an actual medical syndrome. She was just coining it. But basically it's Katie Bourdain, who's a marriage and family therapist. This TikTok has totally taken off, and it is like taken over the cultural zeitgeist, and there are articles, so many articles about it. There's like a Times article, there's the Guardian article, even Vogue wrote an article recently about Vogue. It. So they're even like they're like one step behind the time. Like the joke of like when something's in the New York Times, it's like over the hill.
Oh, I had no idea.
It's like jump the shark.
Wow.
It's kind of like a stupid like people who like think they're highbrow type of joke to make.
Oh, I see. If it's in the Times, it's already too late.
Yeah.
If it's in my Forbes article, it's already too late.
No, it's not. If it's in your Forbes article, you're like on the cutting edge of all this stuff.
I kind of am on the cutting edge, but I don't know. It takes me a long time to write my articles.
You scooped the cucumber.
I did.
Get it?
Yes. My cucumber article. If you guys don't know what we're talking about,
she got the scoop.
Go to my Forbes page and read my articles because I wrote one on cucumbers.
Yeah, Cherie is a Forbes contributor. Isn't that crazy?
I'm a writer for
literally,
Forbes.
She's a journalist.
I'm a journalist.
In many ways. You're a published journalist. You're a Forbes journalist.
Yeah, it's kind of insane.
What the heck?
Yeah.
What the hell?
And my beat is the creator economy.
She has a beat.
I have a beat, guys.
Guys, she has a beat.
I have purview.
She has purview. Anyway, so here, I'll quote from this Vogue article, but it says, "The term describes an all too common situation in which the eldest daughter in a family is tasked with outsized and often developmentally inappropriate responsibilities as a result of her position."
Not the developmentally irresponsible. Wait, developmentally...
See, she can't even say it.
Developmental responsibilities? Wait, what was that?
Developmentally inappropriate responsibilities.
Not the developmentally inappropriate responsibilities.
As a result of her position in the family's birth order, people dealing with the effects of elder daughter syndrome might find themselves struggling to uphold boundaries, devoting too much of their energy to people-pleasing, or finding it hard to shake a type A or overachiever mentality in their day-to-day lives. Yeah. Red me to filth.
Yeah.
Red me to filth.
So I'm not an eldest daughter. You are an eldest daughter. But from what I understand about this is that just being, like, birth order, like, supposedly means something. Like, I think it does. And being, like, the oldest child, like, you have to forge a path, like, for your younger siblings in many ways. And then I think just like adding a layer on top of that, being the oldest daughter, especially in a first gen / immigrant like family household, is like a whole new experience, a whole nother level of like developmentally inappropriate responsibilities.
I will say to your, not like to your credit, but I would venture to say that you also have some of these syndromes because you are so much younger than me.
Yeah.
Because you are 7 years younger than me. Like, I left and went to college when you were
going
12?
into middle school, yeah.
When you were 10. Oh, shoot, you were 10. So then, like, from the age of 10 onwards, like, I wasn't really around.
Yeah.
So then you were kind of, like, the eldest daughter in some ways. So it's kind of interesting. Like, you got to experience the first 10 years of your life, like, very fully as like
the youngest child.
And I think that has had like a really large effect on your personality, and that's why you're so like confident, outgoing, and like self-assured naturally, and kind of like not like attention seeking, but like the same way.
The comedian of the family, the glue that holds this family together.
I actually think I'm funnier, but you are more outwardly funny.
I don't agree with that, but okay.
Just wait till I glow up.
Yeah, we're still waiting.
Just wait till I glow up.
Still waiting. But yeah, no, it's interesting because I hear you. Like, I kind of have a little bit of both.
Yes, but you're also incredibly responsible, super conscientious.
Yeah.
And like type A and like overachieving as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
I just thought of that. That was a novel thought.
Her new thought. She's forming her first thought.
My first thought.
She formed her first thought.
Sometimes I surprise myself.
Sometimes she has thoughts.
Sometimes I even surprise myself.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
I just diagnosed you.
Well, I guess there's no middle child between us. Like, you know, so the middle child, or maybe there is.
No, I feel like we both had to be the middle child.
Right.
Because...
Well, so then before we go into that, like, middle children are like...
The peacekeepers.
The peacekeepers, the ones who need to help with compromise, because they're usually between an older and younger one, and they're the ones who are like oftentimes overlooked by the parents because they're neither the oldest nor the youngest. That's usually the diagnosis for middle children.
Yeah.
But we did have to be peacekeepers too in our family.
Totally.
The art of negotiation. It was learned through divorce.
Yeah.
As children of divorce.
Yeah. Yeah, truly. And also, like, I think we are, or I'll speak for myself, but I think probably true of you too. Like, I think I'm like hyper aware of like other people's emotions.
Yeah.
Because when you're a child and you grow up in a sort of like chaotic environment like that, where you need to be hyper aware of like your situation, that's something to like, it's really hard to shake.
Well, I would say, I mean, I've talked about it honestly with a lot of friends. They say it's one of my superpowers. Actually, I've talked about it with friends, with mentors, with therapists. It's like being able to read.
She talks a lot.
Yeah. Well, I talk about my problems a lot. Being able to like read the room and like diagnose it. It's like it's a burden, but also a gift, because you're able to be like so adept at and see and feel what other people are feeling, and so many people are not able to recognize that. I think it's helped me in a professional setting.
I think you're the more evolved version of me, because I think that my problem is that I do that, but I also instantly like default change myself, and like one, I like take on the emotions of what's going on, and then I'll like automatically adjust myself to fit that, versus like I feel like you're more evolved in that you can like clock everything and you're super aware, but you don't have to like, you don't react to that naturally. You like decide how you want to react to that.
Yeah, you don't have to take on what, in fact, it's so, I mean, I don't know if it's not a choice. It's definitely not a choice, but like taking on how other people are feeling is just like a huge
burden.
Yeah, like emotional burden.
Oh, totally.
And I was just like, don't burden me. Like, I'm like, this is not for me to take on.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, you're more evolved in it.
Yeah.
You're the Charizard to my Charmander.
Charmander.
Char.
Well, also, I feel like I've talked about it a lot, too. Like, I've gone to, like, years of therapy. Like, consistently and weekly. To talk about all sort of things, you know, in my life. And I think it's good. But, like, I think I've thought a lot about it. And I'm, like, okay thinking about these things now. And I talk about it with friends a lot. Like, I have friends who also feel this way too. So it's like a conversation that we have often, so it doesn't feel as charged. You know.
But yeah, so eldest daughter syndrome.
We both have it in some ways.
And then to take the topic even one level deeper, there's eldest daughter and then there's eldest immigrant daughter,
which is a whole nother phenomenon. So eldest daughters in any family are easy to spot. They're labeled bossy, people pleasers, the mom of the friend group, and the kind of type A personality that organizes your get-togethers and is strung tighter than a Skims bikini. The eldest daughter of immigrants, think the eldest daughter trope on crack. I don't know if I like that.
It's from a Vice
or
magazine
at least
article.
That pill from Limitless. Okay.
Okay, but I've like wanted that pill from Limitless.
Oh yeah, until Bradley Cooper like didn't have any left, and then he only had like 24 hours to live or something. So I don't know. Vices.
That wasn't my takeaway of the movie. Somehow I forgot that part.
Yeah. I think I've been like called all of these things: bossy, people pleasers, mom of the friend group. I think you just as like if you have oldest daughter syndrome, I feel like you want. Okay.
You feel responsible.
But you feel like you need to control things, I think. Or like in situations, even if they're out of your control, you feel like you need to have control. Yeah. Because sometimes like as an oldest child, like
you were given responsibility, that like outsized responsibility for your age and for your developmental
capabilities.
Progress.
But also like if you're an oldest child, I feel like a lot of the times the parents are still figuring it out, which is why you have a lot of responsibilities. True. And you need to like take care of yourself or figure things out on your own.
True. I do feel like now that I'm 35 and I'm not having like a child this year, I don't even know about next year. I thought it'd be next year, but anyway.
Nope.
But like I feel like now like I am like 10, 20 times more equipped to have a child than I would have been if I were like 26.
Could you imagine? I mean, like there's plenty of people now who are having kids like in like their early 20s, mid 20s, but like our parents were like that age when they were having kids. Mm-hmm. And I was like, me when I was 24, 25 years old, I was a 24, 25-year-old teenager, and I'm one of the responsible ones. Like I'm the responsible type A person. But, like I wouldn't have been able to handle that. Like as opposed to now when I'm 29, and that's just a few years, but those years were important for me to grow up and also have like the emotional capacity to like handle myself, let alone a baby.
Speak, girl.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
That's crazy. I don't know if 20-year-olds should be having kids.
Well, it makes you honestly have a little bit more empathy for your parents because for our parents, I guess, because I'm like, damn, like they were still learning about themselves, still growing up, moving to an entirely new country where English was their second language, having to give up their prior like lucrative careers and lives and like family. Successful career paths to take on a whole new career path that was
taking a step back.
Taking a step back and like not what they originally had set out to do.
It wasn't their hopes or dreams or aspirations. It was taking something to survive and to provide for your family.
Right, in service of like another hope or dream, which was like the next generation,
the American
which was us.
dream.
Yeah. Kamala who?
Yeah.
Cherie.
Yeah.
This was like a much more upbeat version of the topic. But I think it's because we like worked through the trauma in the first episode.
I wasn't even traumatized. Jean said I looked like I was going to cry.
She like looked like she was about to cry.
I wasn't about to cry.
Maybe sometimes I know you better than you know yourself.
I don't. Maybe, but that wasn't the case.
Her eyes were shiny.
My eyes are always shiny.
She has sparkling eyes. Your eyes are sparkling. Sparkling.
Oh wait, should I say anything about youngest child syndrome?
No one cares.
I think if birth order does matter, it's pretty nice to grow up as the youngest child. I think like you're showered with a lot of love. You're the baby of the family. I think it's like one of the luckier ones. You do get a lot of attention, and like research says that like the youngest kids are the ones who end up taking more risks because they feel like they feel supported, whether it's like financially, emotionally, or whatever. Like they can take more risks and do the more entrepreneurial thing.
Yeah.
So I do think like I feel very lucky to be the youngest in our family, even amongst our cousins. Like I am regarded as like the baby of the family and always have been.
Yeah.
And also the family favorite. Everyone loves May May.
That's true, because everyone saw you and everyone known you from since you were a little baby.
I know, it's fun. I wasn't bratty, but I was just like definitely.
She wasn't bratty, but she was brat.
I was brat, I mean? She was not bratty.
Yeah, you were like the definition of brat. Like she was that girl since she was like born. She's always been that girl. No, seriously, like. I think that is also, yeah, you're not just the youngest child, you're the youngest of all of the cousins.
Of all of our cousins.
So, like, you've always been given, like, a lot of attention and always a lot of positive attention.
Yeah.
By, like, all the generations.
Yeah, and could, like, do no wrong in some ways, you know?
Yes.
Like, not that I ever got into trouble, but, like...
Yeah, you were always very
respectful, well-behaved.
Yeah, you were good.
But I think people like my grandma and grandpa, like, showered me with a lot of attention.
Yeah, and like,
a lot of
encouraged your naturally outgoing and, like, positive nature.
Yeah, they really reinforced that. I feel very lucky about that. Like, I think my grandparents did a really good job. I don't know if it was, like, as welcome in my, like, immediate family, that I was, like, super outgoing and, like, you know, as a kid, very much liking the limelight, but I think my grandparents really leaned into it and helped that blossom in a way that grandparents do. This is my maternal grandparents, so I feel very lucky about that.
Yeah.
For that.
Her eyes are shiny again.
They're not.
In some ways, I feel like the benefits of you being a youngest child and, like, taking a lot of risk have now finally come full circle to help me in a way, because, like, you obviously have been working on your creator career for part-time, but for the last, like, 5 years, and I've been sort of, like, behind the scenes, like, helping you with it and, like, being a part of it but not fully in it.
Yeah.
And, like, only, like, the fact that I've been watching you do it and been sort of a part of it for so long.
Yeah.
Do I now feel comfortable doing this startup and doing this entrepreneurial journey with you? And even, like, putting myself out there like this, because, like I've mentioned before, like, I'm naturally a much more private person than Cherie is, but, like, having seen the benefits of your creator career and, like, all of the work that goes into it and all of how much it helps everyone, that has inspired me and encouraged me to now do this entrepreneurial journey with you.
Yeah, it's really come full circle, and it's, like, really beautiful that we can do this together. I was out to dinner last night, and one of my friends, guy friends, was just like, he remarked on how incredible it is that, like, we are so aligned in what we want to be doing right now in terms of, like, vision and like where we're going with Sisters Matcha, with our Japan trip, with our content, with our conferences. Like, he like said some stuff about that, and I was just like, you're so right. Like, it is incredible. I think it's really special, and, like, obviously it doesn't happen for, like, many people, let alone for, like, siblings.
I made my own best friend. Finally, it's paying off. Finally.
I was your built-in best friend.
Yeah.
Oh, your eyes are shiny.
Are they?
Yeah. Best friend.
Besties.
Bestie.
Besties.
Bestie.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Tiger Sisters. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and please share it with someone who might find it helpful.
Thanks.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.